We are basically going to speak as the leapers. With Cathee, you never know exactly who's going to show up. She is a channeler. She channels many beings, all of which are very close to her. We are extraordinarily close to her. We call ourselves the Leapers. It's kind of a name she made up with some friends. We have gone by many names through the ages, but basically what we do is, within a soul family, help to determine what the next incarnations are going to be. We are the natural forces of incarnation. And that means in your soul family, you have a group of leapers, these nature beings, who not only help to determine who is going to be born and who is going to die when, but all the innumerable small births and deaths of the psyche, and even of major physical changes, are coordinated by your leapers. Now, lately we have been in an interesting environment that many channelers have anticipated. Many people are experiencing. Cathee is finding us saying, probably 10 years ago, we told her that, someday you're going to be feeling other people's feelings so strongly that it feels like their feelings are yours and you can't tell the difference. And this didn't happen for a very, very long time, and now it's happening a lot for a lot of people. So a lot of the predictions are now upon us. And of course, as leapers, we work with many parallel selves of each of you. We work with many probabilities of the way larger group consciousnesses are going to go. Political entities like nation states, and as well as families and communities. This is a very new channeler that we are working with in this moment. And we're having to, even in getting going here, deal with a great silence within Cathee that wasn't there before. This has been quite a few months since we came through her to you in these videos. And she's been through a lot. A lot of what we call leaps. Now, a leap, those of you who have seen our previous videos know, what we consider a quote leap is when you undergo a huge change or a small change in your life that you could not have by your own positive thinking or affirmations or even intentions or just the daily life of habit gotten yourself to. A leap is a change. And every time you make a leap, a part of you dies. Now, we are, as we said, the leapers, the forces of incarnation and de-incarnation. So, of course, if you want to become something you haven't been, you're going to have to stop being who you were. This, for a lot of people, is the tricky part of change at all. A lot of people say they want big change in their life, whether financial, emotional, physical, but the letting go is sometimes the bugaboo for letting something new come. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, Cathee and Peter found themselves in their little town of 1,200 people, flooded out. There was no electricity. There was no telephone service. There were no roads in or out. What are the other The water, she still had water, but only a few weeks' supply left in the tower, which because the water treatment plant had lost some of its equipment down the river too. But Cathee and Peter actually had a great time that week as the people emptied their freezers into the local restaurant that used generators to cook all this food. And she has never dined so well in some ways, especially since there were some pretty good spreads people had. They got to know their neighbors like they've never really known them before. Both learned meeting new people and seeing generosity, and also seeing how people did under stress. There were big helicopters zooming in and out, evacuating people. And Cathee and Peter decided to wait it out. There were people that were rebuilding an old stagecoach road, a 140-year-old stagecoach road that was, had become almost like a path through the woods. And so people went out there with their spades, and eventually there were some federal firefighters that came in to help make that into a viable, passable four-wheel drive road. And that's how they eventually got out, although they didn't have permission to use that road to come back in at all because it went through private land. So in that transition, all the years that we have been talking to Cathee about how your reality can change overnight, and she has experienced many huge leaps, actually, before this. But it was fun to go through a major leap where everyone in her immediate environment was going through a major leap. And many people reacted by trying to pretend that things could be the same again. And they're not. They're not. Many of Peter's favorite places, and Cathee's too, have been along streams that became huge, wide, raging cauldrons. And now that the water's gone, they're huge, wide bands of barren rock, or lots of rocks, but anyway, no plants. And it will be that way for a long time, we're sure. With a little stream down the middle of this big wide expanse that's been carved out. And there are trees lying all over, stacked up on top of each other in these areas. And of course there was a stream running through her basement for weeks after the flood, and she doesn't know how long that phenomenon, if that's going to be a recurring phenomenon now more than ever too. But even more than, wondering if the food was going to last as long as she needed before she'd get out of this little kind of, you might call it a little island of a community that was cut off from the outside world in many ways. Because this is a town Cathee moved to because it doesn't have cell phone coverage. She was surprised how quickly everyone seemed to want to get back to normal and pretend that it was normal. Instead of saying maybe we need to build our homes differently, maybe we need to shape our culture differently, she noticed that people were very concerned about getting back to their jobs, even if it meant, leaving their basements full of water, molding, because their employers weren't giving them, as soon as they could get out, the employers expected them back at work. The people around her seemed to be very concerned about procuring energy supplies like propane, procuring internet access, without wondering if, there was very little talk of changing ways of living. No talk of global warming. She didn't hear anyone talk about, did our lifestyles help create this crazy weather? And should we live differently? So it was a huge leap for some people. And for others, it probably will just be a loss that they remember, instead of an opportunity to go to a new life, to change, to change. Cathee enjoyed her losses. She lost a lot of stuff in her basement and almost wishes she'd lost more of those boxes of memoirs and such. Clothes she never wears, etc. But there was a much bigger loss that those of you who went through the flood in Colorado, USA with her, but also those watching from around the world, there's a bigger loss that we think many, many people are going through now. You live in a culture, in a world, in a parallel world that is so not viable, so not sustainable. It's amazing that you've been able to, Band-Aid over what's really happening to the earth. And, Cathee, that's one thing Cathee discovered by having to pull off the drywall downstairs and see what the house was really made of, that it really was papered over. But what she discovered, and what we want to give permission to many of you to discover, she discovered that it was a relief to have the floods sweep away a lot of the illusion that this society is running on anything that can supply the basic needs of food and water that she was afraid she'd go without if she hadn't gotten out of there eventually. It's all on a very, very delicate balance. And we think most people at some level know that on a cellular level, even though the denial and rationalization is amazing. And that comes out in the form of distraction. You go shopping for your next car and you never think about, will there be gas for it? Most of the houses in her little town were far from self-sufficient, very dependent on other people supplying, like gas companies supplying propane, water companies supplying water, electricity companies supplying electricity, and so forth. Which she, of course, if you've seen her webpage on electromagnetic frequencies in many of our videos, you could guess that she was very happy to be without electricity for a while. And especially happy that the neighbor's Wi-Fi did not run very well, except when they turned on their, gas-driven generators. But to come out of denial in a big way was a relief to her. people at a gathering the night before she left, neighbors who had gathered to make their final decision on whether they were going to hope the road would be drivable, or should they fly out on the helicopter the next day at the last chance, to get out on the helicopter. These were huge helicopters that took about 30 people out at a time, and it was quite quite a sight to see these swooping in all day. But she mentioned global warming, total denial. Mentioned lifestyle, total denial. Even in the middle of a crisis. But deep down inside, something changed in her that said, this is getting pretty close to life and death in our decision making. I'm no longer going to go along pretending that the situation is anything on earth now but what it is. Now, she had been, for 3 years now, talking about parallel worlds, talking about how we have offered to help leap many, many people to parallel worlds that are not in your ecological situation, not in your cultural denial of life and of nature, and how humans are just a part of nature and the big, interdependent, loving, natural interplay of consciousness. She had been, though, a little timid about talking about this. She has helped many, many people leap. Most of it working on the inner planes. She has done some of these videos and put up a lot of material on the website, which, by the way, is www.weeness.org. WENESS is Weeness. We've got lots of material up from people who are on these other parallel worlds, who are welcoming leapies from your cluster of parallel worlds that are watching this video, most likely. But she hadn't been shouting it from the rooftops. And she was still a little holding back of her energy and of her heart. But when she saw the power of the river, like she has never seen before, just boiling, it's amazing power in the river. Felt the energy of that and saw the aftermath. Something has broken open in her. And as we prepared for this channeling, to do this channeling today, she's been having a hard time finding the Cathee that she was the last time we filmed some videos. It's just not there. It's not there. She can't find that feeling that she used to have of who Cathee was. And of course, as a triple walk-in back then, she already was had been through many changes to have a new sense of Cathee. And now, though, even that is blown open. What happened for her is that we've been talking for a long time that we wanted her to be able to walk back and forth between, we'll just call it Jonathan's parallel world, because he's her main contact there, and her own world that is, physically what you're seeing here. And she didn't quite understand that. What happened was we split off in the middle of this excitement of the flood situation, when the helicopters were coming in and coming in and coming in, and she was watching everybody go out and, hoping that she'd be able to drive out. But she knew she didn't want to really be a part of that old world anymore. That was so in denial about the situation on Earth in the world she was in. And she put out an extension like a parallel self split off would normally be. And more of you have done this already than you know. We have left far more people than consciously realize it, because your parallel self goes off and you may still be in a similar old situation. And part of the joy we're experiencing now, that the leap movement has been going for a while, is helping people better connect with these parallel selves that they've already split off, and get that love relationship going and the communication going between the worlds, which is very exciting. I mean, that's where the cultural and technological exchange is going to most happen, between people and their parallel selves, reporting back to each other. And we're trying to help people develop their psychic ability, basically, to be able to get those messages and give those messages and feel the love, even feel the love between them and their own parallel selves. So she split off a parallel self that is very much a part of Jonathan's world, and very much a part of Jonathan. We have bonded Cathee and Jonathan to where they're almost like walk-ins, only they each have a body in a different parallel world still. And so he is very much a part of this one, and he's very much adjusting to that too, through his connection to her. But she will increasingly be able to be conscious of her parallel self there, and conscious of who she is here, as if they are one person. In other words, there's just not going to be much polarity between those two Cathees. It's just kind of a shift of focus back, and she'll be going between the worlds. Why we're mentioning this is because this is another development that we would love to offer to many of you out there who are ready. Some of you already know what that's like to split off a parallel self. And we really mean more than split off a parallel self, because we're talking about leaping. Again, a leap means, a parallel self that splits off to a very different situation, consciously. You all split off parallel selves all the time, almost every time you make a major decision, or even a lot of minor ones. A part of you will go out and try out another way of doing something. Now, this going out may seem to be like in a dream state almost. Going out, it's like a wispy emanation of yourself to try out whatever decision you wanted to kind of play out and see how it would work. For instance, if you're looking at a couple different jobs you're considering taking, you might take both of them, and then it becomes obvious that one is really better suited to you than the other. And it's almost like that one of them is like a dream-like, wispy, it kind of fades out. Or that psychic, energy blends into the other self, and you go forward on this stream. Although you might have two full, very embodied, strong selves that go forward with both jobs into the future and spawn off new parallel selves on farther out. This happens all the time. This is the nature of reality. The leap is when you consciously want to, like to go to another parallel world with a whole other culture, and to, come as a refugee and do that consciously. That's quite a big leap that you would need our help for, most likely. Although a lot of, exchange student programs and so forth are almost to that extent, when they people end up in a very foreign culture and have to cope. So, but this idea that you can split off a parallel self and you're almost both, because you are finding a part of yourself that can function in two different worlds at the same time. Now, Cathee and Peter is approaching this himself. And, she's finding herself sleeping a lot. And so a lot of what happens in Jonathan's world, she's more and more getting conscious of. But, at first the body is going through tremendous changes here in the first place. But also a lot of this is happening now in the sleep state. But she will get more and more conscious and no longer call that the sleep state, when that happens, when she's aware of what she's doing there. So we are excited that we will be able to do now videos where she's channeling people from Jonathan's world, but they are more real to her than they've ever seen before. She has for a long time had many, many close friends on Jonathan's world. And, she generally has to channel into a recorder the conversations to really facilitate remembering them later. It really helps her to hear it again, what the conversation was. And instead of trying to get that all in the brain, the brain, that's the trick, is to, with all your experiences of your selfhood, what can you get back into your physical brain on a particular parallel world? Because that's what you'll remember. And that's what then seems to become real for you consciously, even though those experiences your parallel selves are very much affecting you in this moment. In this moment, you all have hundreds of parallel selves out there doing things that you're tuned into on some level. You're getting the experience of, the wisdom of, or the trauma of, without knowing it. But what can you get in your brain? And can you operate in such a way that some of those influences become conscious to you, and you can consciously influence your parallel selves if they're about to make a mistake or something, if they need love, if they're in the middle of a flood and need a little comfort. How much can you consciously almost be both people at the same time? The one offering the comfort and the one receiving the comfort. What we see is that those, let's say many of you have come either just to us or some to Cathee to access us through her, and have said, I can't leave my family here, or I feel like I'm supposed to still be here even though I know the ship's going down, to do what I can. And for many of you, that is, definitely a part of your purpose. But some of you, we think, have felt that you are the one left behind. When you hear, you split off a parallel self, and some people can kind of feel that. But your parallel self went on. Like Cathee felt this way when Leanie, there's a video she's done channeling her parallel self. And, when Leanie split off, and it took a while for Cathee to realize that had already happened. This was soon after she finished channeling the Parallel Worlds Handbook. And yeah, she felt very left behind. Okay, so I went through this. I went through the leap, but I'm still here. And then she started communicating with Lainey, her parallel self, and we think now, well, Cathee, you can jump in here if you want to, but she feels like she's the one. Cathee's the one who is really kind of the lucky one, because she is now developing the ability, not that Lainey couldn't, but to be more in the center of her cluster of parallel selves. We call it the parallel between parallels. Or you could consider that the parallel world between parallel worlds, or the parallel self between parallel selves. For many months now, she and Peter have, felt that Cathee may channel for one person one day and tell them their parallel world is great, everything's going fine, and then she channels for a different person the next day, and it's all about how the world is going down. And Cathee's gotten used to this, because the person she talks to one day may be on a very different world than the person she talks to the next day. She's even discovered that it seems like she's talking to different parallel versions of Jonathan all the time, which is a little strange. And she even feels like Peter comes home a different parallel self at times. He had an experience this week where he was just sure a speaker he wanted to offer to do some video work for. He was just sure he saw on the internet that the speaker was speaking at a conference at a certain time. And, he offered to film him, and well, even before then he got on the internet later and looked at the same conference schedule he had just looked at, and he could find that speaker's name nowhere. Whereas, it had only been a day or less that he was sure he had written down the time, the place. It was a different parallel world. On one, the same guy was talking, and on one, he wasn't. And it was embarrassing for Peter, but it was a kind of enlightening too, at how quickly your life can shift. Now that may be a minor shift compared to being in a big flood or something, but an important. We're at the point where, yes, every thought you think is important and can take you in a different direction, which is why we've always said, don't watch the news. It can take you into negativity, depending on what news you listen to, we guess. Anyway, so if you're in, many of you, we think, are probably in that kind of chaos where there's really, it's getting obvious, the discontinuity between the events in your life, between the conversations you have with the same person. They may not even remember that you told them some very important information the day before, and maybe they don't show up where you were supposed to meet, and they're like, well, I don't remember that conversation. Or, people are experiencing it differently. But we really encourage the people who are ready now to go to the center of kind of your soul essence. Let the discontinuities be there. Let the necessary deaths of who you thought you were happen quickly and easily. In other words, if you want to become rich, you've got to let go of the poor self. You can do a very slow reforming of the poverty thinking. Or you can say, I want to leap over here and be wealthy. But you need to let go of all the emotion and perseverance that you put into making it, surviving in your poverty. And, there may be a lot there that actually was good, that was character building, that gave you compassion for other people or so forth. Can you let that self die and jump over here? We think for many of you now who have been working with New Age ideas of creating your own reality, which, we've always said is true to an extent, but there's much bigger forces and much bigger purposes than are usually factored into how people go about that. And of course, we can leap you farther than you can leap yourself. But nonetheless, many of you have experimented with many techniques in that way. And we think the biggest stumbling block for many of you is letting go of the old self. Just letting go of the old self. Now, there probably will be many more natural catastrophes to help other people who missed out on this one be put in a situation of do or die, now or never, let's leap. Cathee was very motivated to make a big leap. And actually, I suppose in that sense, she's somewhat of an adrenaline junkie. It was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I am getting my one-pointed intention to the leapers, like in alignment. Get me out of here. But she really wanted to be out of the old world with its value system, with its craziness of lifestyle that is only going to make, more imbalance in the natural flow of life on Earth. She wanted out of that entirely. So that's what we gave her, was this, okay, you're going to be both. You're going to be both here and there at the same time. And so she is adjusting. Like we said, when she's having to feel like even in channeling us for you right now, it kind of feels a little different. It feels, we think she feels much closer to us, to tell you the truth, because we walk with her every day now, more than ever. To be honest, she's very attuned now, more than ever, we think, to how we're experiencing life, to how we're experiencing our relationship with her. She wants this to be a great experiment in human consciousness, in more than human consciousness, a great experiment in nature-human relations, for us to be very involved with the humans in this way. And we're loving it. We are loving it. It is very experimental. We still have the free will factor, that, again, will help us, let us leap you only as far as we can. And then you really have to be clear in your intentions and what you're asking and what you're willing to let go of for us to make too big a change, or we're afraid you'll flip. So, or, freak out that you've lost too much free will or something. We're walking a fine line with some people on that score. In the long run, the whole idea of you create your own reality, we think will seem like a very elementary concept. For light workers who truly wish to follow spirit, to fulfill their deepest, truest work on earth. We've said for some time that the term the leapers really refers to not only the natural forces of incarnation, nature beings, but more and more we're becoming very knit together with people who are helping on the inner planes or on the outer planes, for people to clarify where they want to go, to resonate with the people who will host them and with the whole natural setting that they are leaping to. And then there are leapers who help people when they arrive, and often people are cocooned. In other words, in stepping down the new body from the astral self that will match the earth resonance of the new world, and the new, not only the place, the actual territory, land, but also that whole world's frequency. It can take a while to be able to. It's like a baby coming in and having to learn to maneuver in that gravity field, and see and speak and feel, and at a different density. Sometimes when people first come in, and we've probably mentioned this before, they almost seem ghost-like to the natives. And it takes a while to really be able to fully see the natives and interact fully. Some people, it's no problem, and others take a long time. So some of the leapers are those who nurture those who are cocooned and help them come in. When Cathee has tried to walk over to Jonathan's before, she wasn't cocooned. She was trying to just go there. And they were playing little, thumb wrestling games with her to get her to focus, to be able to see the person's thumb and to be able to press it enough. And she got to where, I think the last time she really tried to do that, before this big leap, she was able to just go over. To her, it's just like, it's not like big out of body, leave the body experience and go whipping around astrally and land. It's just like a visualization, really, for her. But it's very real, in that they talk to her and she can talk back. And she was able to press down on a door door handle, the kind that clicks down and then you push forward. She was able to materialize a body enough to push down on the lock enough, the door handle, that the door could open. And she was so proud of herself. But it took a lot of focus, and that's kind of how it is to go between the worlds and go between different frequencies. So the people that help nurture those coming in, we would call those people the leapers too. It's a whole group of people, and we're hoping, many of you will want to be a part of that, to not only leap, but to help facilitate the leaps, those of you who are gifted psychically and gifted in the heart. Even the people that are talking and writing about the leap are leapers, we would say. It's coming to a place, we think, when you're part of the leaping experience, whether you're leaping or you're helping other people leap, you're getting to know the void. You're getting to know very well that place where things go out of form and get reformed and come in another form, and yet you track the essence. There's a soul essence that still continues, even though so much changes. You get to know what your essence really is about, what the essence of you is. That is what we call the focus of experience, the focus of perspective. The whole world is created through many, many relationships. And in a way, who you are, how you define yourself, is through your relationships, through someone else having polarity with you and seeing you and you see them, and then you know who you are. So it refines that sense of, what does it feel like to be me? Well, how am I perceiving the world? How am I looking out through my eyes? And, it comes back to the center of experience, rather than the externals, like the body, after it's manifested and everything's manifested around you in the external world. As more and more of you go through leaps and experience that, or even help facilitate leaps, And many of you, do that without using that vocabulary for people. We will. It's happening. Create a web, a matrix of a very flexible group of people who are comfortable with formlessness, who are comfortable with discontinuity, who are comfortable with trusting that their essence is there and will continue, even if they very much let go of who they thought they were yesterday or a minute ago. They trust that, as we always say, selfhood will arise when you need it. You don't have to hang on to it. You don't have to shore it up. It arises when you need it. In other words, in the next moment of polarity with someone else or something else, another land, or whatever. As we have a network more and more within our soul family, and this is happening in all soul families. It's the times, it's time for it. You will more and more identify yourself as this network, as this soul family, and less as who you were yesterday. The outward details of your life. You will experience, as that happens for you, love like you could never have imagined. You will feel so loved. It's ironic. The less solid your sense of selfhood, the more you just go to the heart of love. And we want to do more videos now, and really try to help along those of you who are right with us, wanting more of this, wanting more of an intimate relationship with us in your daily walk. Cathee goes through so many leaps, and big ones, and like we said, works with so many parallel worlds. And one of the most central, we are one of the most central polarity relationships she uses to center her sense of, who am I? Who am I? I'm a leaper. And we think as she laid there on her bed about 5 or 6 weeks ago and listened to the big helicopters come in and evacuate people and evacuate people and evacuate people. They were loud, and they seemed to make a turn right above her house. It was like they came in from Fort Collins, and then they went up to Estes, and they, turned. It wasn't just her town that was being evacuated on that route. She was afraid, in fact, they'd accidentally chop her tree tops off because they were so low. But some of them. As she listened to this and felt the excitement of it, she knew that we were going to be stepping up our rescue operations in her life. We told her she was getting to see how a very efficient evacuation happens, and it was a training for her, job training to be an evacuator, to be a rescuer. For all we've talked about, like we don't rescue. Rescue is the old paradigm. Sometimes it's an appropriate term to use for those who are really asking for big change. And the reason that she, she has been working for years, doing this kind of work and getting people out of bad situations, really bad situations. But we feel that, the times are such that this is going to really be stepped up. And enough of you have heard about the leap and the opportunity and are asking for it. But ultimately, for many of you, the leap experience will not just be from being who you are and then becoming a parallel self, split off of that. For many of you, the leap will be to a higher form of consciousness, where you are identified with being more the parallel self, who is connected to all your parallel selves and flows like nature flows. Animals know when a forest fire is coming. The river knew what the clouds were about to do. It's all connected, and everybody adjusts. And in fact, and to finish that thought, you will find yourself more and more in that web and that state of consciousness of, what do I do today? Who am I today? Who do I work with today? And what parallel world are they on? Where can I be effective today? And that will change from day to day for many of you. Even if you're at the same job, you may be working with a different parallel self of your coworkers. You may be relating to a different parallel self of your coworker the next day and the next day. It's a real interesting time to be alive. In the level of consciousness humanity has reached now, and in the external vibratory environment. We want to tell you you're not crazy if you are feeling like your coworker changes all the time to a different parallel self. There's tremendous power available now. And it doesn't matter what circumstance you're in. We've told you over and over that, many of you came in to be willing to be in very difficult situations, to gain the wisdom to help us glean the wisdom from a very strange experiment in extreme free will, is the way Cathee likes to say it. But also to be in some of these difficult environments so that you can help bring the change that's needed. Even if you have to leap out of them, to send love back, to send information back. We are, you might say, a process as much as we are a being. We the leapers. We're more a verb than a noun. And we live in this new exciting way through people and through our deva of relationship with many humans. This is how you see us. It's like you see the wind blow, but you don't really see the wind blow. You see the branches of the tree move. You see the litter, blowing along the highway, and you know the wind has blown. We are a process. We are a movement. And those of you who have it in your heart to really become one with nature, in her own intelligence, in her own interconnectedness, in her own joy and creativity. We still very much offer our love to you and our openness to having a very deep relationship with each of you. In that you will enter this process if you want to get close to us. You will be a leaper. You will be part of the movement of a great coming to awareness and coming to oneness of nature and human at this time. We are so grateful ourselves to be participating with you at what may seem like a really crazy time in the history of life on Earth, with things taken to extremes, including denial and stupidity, and how your addictive society has seems to like the whole idea of unlimited growth in the stock market, like what goes up doesn't have to come down, or it's some assumptions that your society are built on are really pretty silly. But even now, I mean, for us to be able to be deep into the experience of whatever you're experiencing with you, and to be a part of you in that, and you a part of whatever you are experiencing. As you bring us in, as we grow in love for each other, and you become more and more the process that we represent, that you bring light and a central intelligence, a central connection to anywhere you are, to whatever scenario you're in. And we just, again, can't quite describe the love that you can feel, that can bring you joy no matter what's going on. And furthermore, we can leap you out of it if it's if it's a real bad scene, and we're happy to. There's that too. So, for Cathee, she has told people over and over that all of it was good. The whole flood thing, all of it was good for her. It was great. She and Peter took a road trip after they got out while they were waiting for utilities to come back on at home, and they couldn't get back in anyway to their house after they evacuated. So they had their first vacation in ages. It was great. It was great. They were forced to do that, practically. Yeah, so we feel this urge to just keep talking and talking because we just want to reach your hearts. The words don't matter so much as the energy at times. And we know that we're going to have to stop talking here at some point. That's kind of the fun of, part of the fun of, the studio setup, which is another thing that came from this flood, is Cathee and Peter made the back bedroom into a studio now. So we can totally ignore the natural sun rising and sun setting because there's a big blanket over the window, and use artificial lights, and we could just talk to you for 24 hours and nobody, Cathee would be oblivious to, like, it's like the moon coming up. But anyway, please do keep in touch with us, either, directly, or you can call or write to Cathee. The contact information is at www.weenus.org. She's going to start a blog. If you'd like to sign up for that, then you can also, have a better two-way conversation through that too. We're really going to work now on connecting people, and so that you feel supported not only by us but by each other. we're going to take. She's very reclusive. She's the ultimate introvert hermit, but we're going to prod her now that she's truly a leaper, and get going on that. So her love goes out to you too, and we'll keep in touch. So be it.